Before computers were machines, they were women solving intricate mathematical problems. Then World War II started, and men decided to build computers. Despite their zeal to build the machines, they had no interest in programming them, so they left the job to the women. Women played a pivotal role in shaping the new industry. And then, in 1984, everything changed. Women exited and the men became the programmers, the software engineers, and the rock stars of the digital era. Today, only 20% of IT degrees go to women. In this podcast, we delve into the chronicles of these forgotten women, the trailblazers who guided us into the digital era.
Welcome to another episode of Breaking the 20%. I'm Elena, CTO of Cocoon Creation, software engineer and geek. If you like this podcast, please support us by giving us a good rating on whichever platform you use to listen to the episodes and share about us on social media. Joining us today is Demetris Skourides, the Chief Scientist for Research, Innovation and Technology in Cyprus. With a wealth of experience and a pivotal role in steering Cyprus' technological future, Demetris is here to share insights into his goals, the role of the Chief Scientist, ongoing projects, and the impact of research, innovation and technology on Cyprus development. Demetris, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Elena.
So let's start from the beginning. I want to know who Demetris is. Can you walk us through your career path leading up to your appointment as Chief Scientist?
Thank you, Elena. Thanks for inviting me over and having me here with you today. So, like yourself, I'm a geek. I hold a bachelor's in computer science and software engineering and an MBA from Henley Management College, which later became part of the University of Reading. So, in essence, a core passion for technology. I have undertaken actually a few professional, let's say, certifications, starting with the Oracle database, eventually practicing out into becoming a cloud practitioner for the Oracle cloud infrastructure, Oracle's OCI, first and second generation, and then later a cloud practitioner for AWS. I've actually pursued extensive leadership and development trainings, or actually personal development, in a variety of areas like digital transformation, information, innovation management, leadership, sales, data monetization, likewise in artificial intelligence, and concluding with startups and how they can actually scale from a range of universities and institutions like Columbia Business School, ISE Barcelona, the Michigan School of Ross, MIT, Harvard, and also Stanford to start with. I'm very passionate about technology, and throughout my journey in the 20 plus years of experience, I've actually played a variety of roles, starting from consulting, implementation, software engineering projects, R&D in the first couple of years of my experience, and then eventually moving over to standards, where I actually played a pivotal role in standardization standards for security, telecom, and information technology, and eventually moved over into the corporates for Oracle, taking over a few individual and also leadership roles, starting over from 2006 and covering a range of responsibilities, covering territories across Southeastern Europe, Eastern Europe, Middle East, Middle East and Africa, and eventually EMEA and APAC. All of these, had different types of responsibilities, including channel ecosystem build-up and development, ISV adoption of technology, as we, start, first of all, to encourage ISVs to start building solution first, traditional technologies, which we called on-prem, right, and eventually over into the cloud, and then succeeding basically the role of leading the go-to-market, the cloud transformation teams, and also the ISV solution engineering teams across the three continents, Europe, Middle East, and Asia Pacific. And shortly before my arrival to Cyprus to take up the chief scientist role, I spent a very short time with Amazon, AWS specifically, as the industry strategist for the commercial unit for the global system integrators.
So then eventually you are called back to Cyprus, I guess?
Yes.
And you accepted the role as the chief scientist.
Well, yes, the role of the chief scientist for innovation, R&D, and also technology is something that I was very passionate about. particularly given my, experiences across the Oracle ecosystem, where I was, instrumental to really building the 12 centers of excellence we built with our value-added distributors across, EMEA and also APAC. I think the learnings and lessons learned there, right, are going to be instrumental for me to help Cyprus, actually accelerate on the digital journey. Thank you.
So you are the chairman of the Research and Innovation Foundation, but can you explain to the listener what is the foundation and what its role in promoting research, innovation, and technology?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So the Research Innovation Foundation is a foundation that acts as the national funding agency in Cyprus. So it's an institution that basically is entrusted with the responsibility of implementing the actual strategy that is refined or defined by the Digital Ministry of Digital Policy, Information, right, and Innovation, Research and Innovation. And there is a strategy that has been ratified just a few months ago, actually in December, that covers the journey between 2024 to 2026. RIF is the funding institution that is entrusted to actually execute that on a competitive funding level. So that's a national level programs that are competitively funded, right? And they basically are, designed to actually steer and enable and help, nurture the ecosystem to start building the right, let's say, skills, practices across. So when we talk about the typical type of programs we have, there's financial incentive programs that they're built in several categories. I think I'll elaborate further on, but we're talking about programs like the ones that we're, trying to steam up or let's say excite the startups, like the pre-seeds, the seeds, the innovates, the disrupts. And then there are others that cover other areas which are pure either research ones, like, we have research in enterprise or PhD in enterprise. We have others that cover, the bridge moving over into horizon. So these are what I would call the financial instruments or the financial, let's say, programs that we have, the funding programs. And this is where a core part of the institution, actually the bigger part of the energy goes. So let me just give you an instance to understand. Between the years 2016 to date, we've actually invested more than 148 million euros in all of this ecosystem. And specifically, we have approximately 28 million euros that have actually been invested in 104 companies that have actually really focused on the innovation side of things. This has created approximately 345 jobs, which is important in us creating what we call the sustainability in the economy, right? So most people talk about R&D, but they often don't associate innovation with R&D. So here I'll just stop for a second and say that for us, right, R&D isn't just research. Yes, there's basic research or what we call field research, there's applied research, and then there's innovation. So what we try to mix between our financial instruments is making it possible for us to actually have a mix of the two in a way that we create a balanced ecosystem.
And you also go all the way.
Gyms. And we go all the way, yes, all the way to commercialization. So just before we move on, I think between the next programmatic period we have, 2021 to 2027, we've got 150 million euros in plan, right? That we're going to be really covering areas like knowledge management, knowledge transfer, innovation, be it, for example, development and internalization. And these are actually more relevant now because there's never been a more relevant time for the Cypriot ecosystem to start externalizing all of the great work, the groundbreaking research that we're doing, and also the innovations we have. So before I move over into the second one, the support services, and you'll understand why, when we look at our ecosystem today, right, Cyprus, I think, is quite advanced. We're talking about an ecosystem that's about 12 universities, 7 centers of excellence. We've got approximately 2,500, let's say, researchers, 4,000 entrepreneurs. And in addition to that, right, we've got more than 450 startups, all right? And to support all of these, we realized very, very recently that we needed to actually develop a new set of services. We call them support services that are really going to be able to give, the hand-holding or the guidance to the variety of these startups so that we can increase the rate of their success, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer. 9 out of 10 startups don't make it, right, to past their first 2 years. So what we were doing here is we've built and we have a knowledge transfer office. We call it the Central Knowledge Transfer Office, and we also have an innovation factory. The actual support service of the knowledge transfer office, besides what it does is transfer knowledge, is geared towards creating that necessary, let's say, advice or the guidance that we provide to our customers, who's the partners out there, as to what type of IP protection they need, how can they look at the patent, would their patent cover them in a specific group of products, etc., and how to actually approach licensing, etc. And at the same time, when we're talking about what we call the innovation factory, we're talking about services like what's your innovation capacity assessment, how do you develop your innovation capacity, right? What's the mentoring and coaching you need for you to be able to really get people thinking in the right space, being able to really start thinking about how they approach the product development, how do they actually structure their startup plan, right? Remember, a startup, for it to be valuable, eventually somebody's going to have to look at lifetime value with customer cost of acquisition. So all of these little I think nuggets are nuggets that we offer as some sort of a service, right? We're not the be and all consultant. We're not there to actually consult for the sake of really making money out of it. Our primary focus is to really help these organizations, once they need that help, to have that to be able to come back. And last but not least, I would say, beyond the access or guidance to finance, right, to also help them with some tips and tricks or best practices for startups that are really moving on. And the last piece, which I think is one of the most important ones, is the actual externalization or the internationalization factor. So what's this all about? I mean, well, many companies start thinking about an innovative idea and they think, well, we don't have that in Cyprus, right? Well, if you don't think about the international environment and you don't look beyond the borders of a small island, it will be hard for you to grow in the future. So what we do is, as a research and innovation foundation, we're committed to helping every one of our partners, be it a research organization or a startup, right, to actually have access to what I call the route to market, right, to really help them cross the border, be able to present their solutions, to integrate, to mix, to get introduced to new customers potentially, either through other channels, or even to present in forums like Reflect or Jitex or Slush or all of these others that are there. And I think one of the most important things that I'd like to say here is that Cyprus, one of the competitive advantages we have, being a very neutral country, having very good relationships, right, with other third countries out there, or other countries, is the fact that we could use our embassy as a vehicle to open the market for them. And I think this is a fantastic value proposition for any startup. So in the corporate world, we always talked about the power of three, right? The synergistic power that creates, the value that can easily be captured. And we talked about the vendor or the corporate, the actual partner, and then the actual system integrator or the partner on the other side. And in this case, I strongly believe that there is a synergy there that can actually be considered as the power of three. And I would even go to a further extent, thinking about the power of the ecosystem. So I think the actual ecosystem, the actual tools we have in place through externalization or internalization, and also the vehicles to market present, I think, our customers with an unparalleled opportunity for success. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. So that's the foundation. What about you personally? What is the role of the chief scientist of Cyprus, and what are your responsibilities within the government?
Well, the chief scientist as a role is instrumental in coordinating and supervising, I would say, the formulation for the research, innovation, and R&D technology policy, the operation, and also supporting, for example, the execution within the governance system. In addition, the chief scientist as a role is also a member that supports basically the National Board of Research Innovation, and also, provides suggestions when it comes to the strategy and the execution, also the formulation of the research and the board, right, in terms of the governance system. The chief scientist participates as a member of the board and is actually also participating, providing suggestions when regarding the strategy and also the execution for the governance body to actually execute. In addition, the chief scientist is also responsible for the National Research of Innovation Contributors Committee, is a member of the board of the of the governance board of the Joint Research Centers of the European Union. Acts basically as a member or represents Cyprus in the European Scientific Advisory Forum, and even after that acts as the ex officio, let's say, chairman to the Research Innovation Foundation Board. From the other perspective, I also wear a hat where I also act as a technology advisor to the Deputy Minister of Digital Policy of Research, Innovation and Technology, and at the same time, the President, His Excellency, Mr. Nikos Christodoulidis, in the digital transformation and the journey towards where, trying to speed up the crossing the chasm, I would say, moving from the existing, let's say, kind of services we have to a more digitized, citizen-friendly ecosystem in the world. So, during the day, you'll find me thinking about, how do I accelerate research and innovation and development across, the different industries, to thinking about the ecosystem and how I can actually bring the ecosystem and the map together, to then, switching a hat where I do think more about, digital transformation and artificial intelligence and, what we need to be doing and thinking about, tomorrow, so that we're not too late in a few years' time, right? So these are the things that are keeping me up.
So you are keeping busy.
I am indeed.
So you took office 4-5 months ago, right?
Actually, it's been exactly 5 months ago.
Okay, so what were your initial observations when you took office, and how do you assess the readiness of Cyprus in terms of research, development, and technology adoption?
Well, let me first go back. I think my first encounter with Cyprus was 2002, when I just returned back after my studies abroad, and I would say that Cyprus back then was in its early phases getting introduced to participating in these European research and development projects. And I remember back in my time, I had an opportunity of engaging with what we call the fifth framework program and the sixth framework program that succeeded it. So that was the beginning where Cyprus was actually making the first journey into the research programs, and I was actually surprised by seeing how eager many of the businesses were in really investing in R&D. I returned back in 2023, basically in September, and I must say that I have been pleasantly surprised, basically, with the level of progress that I've seen. I mean, we have a lot of technology out there. Many companies are already using artificial intelligence for specific use cases. We've got, we're using computer vision that are, I think if you go to the mall down the road, you're going to have a parking that's going to really detect your, how do we call it, your plates. And that actually is running computer vision, right? So we've got, a vibrant community. I think we highlighted it earlier on, 12 universities, 450 tech startups, right? We even have some of the largest companies in the world that are here. I recall reading an article that as a startup some time ago, Viber started, as an R&D unit here. We do have some of the biggest utilities. We have the multinationals that have offices in the island. For a while, we even had multinationals that basically had their headquarters based in Cyprus, and that accelerated, I think, the level of know-how of Cypriots for basically using technology and basically have a strong know-how. And now I think the road is really moving on. And I think that, this impression was actually more reinforced when I started interacting with the actual ecosystem today. So, during my initial visits, in my introductory visits to the field, it was great looking at, kiosks with their, let's say, extensive research and development into using artificial intelligence, either to develop, digital twins that are going to look at, emulate the city and how the city operates, from end to end. The example for us is Limassol. Great work that they've done with computer vision, looking at, for example, traffic and really trying to optimize and see and give some recommendations on the traffic system. Looking at, for example, the great work that is being being done on cultural heritage using, for example, artificial intelligence and virtual reality or augmented reality by science. Moving on, for example, Earth surveillance and environment. I recall seeing, for example, a great application by Professor Anayotos, if I recall correctly, who was actually showing me how he could actually zoom into any part of the island and really predict the best suited soil for them actually to grow crops, right? And that's surprising. The fact that you can actually go down and zoom into a specific area and see, for example, that this soil is more fertile and, this amount of water or humidity will actually yield for XYZ crop production is actually mind-blowing. I mean, moving onwards, health is an area where we're actually doing a lot, and I think we've got, the Cyprus Institute of Genetics and Neurology. We have the biobank by the University of Cyprus, where I think Professor, for example, Konstantinos Deltas, and also on the other side for the institute where we have Professor Leonidas Phylaktou, where we have Professor Leonidas Phylaktou, and then we have the Cyprus Cancer Research Institute with Professor Christopidis, who are really looking at very, very different domains across the island. Put on top of this, some of the pioneering energy and pioneering research that we're doing on energy with Phaethon, and then cultivate and captivate on top of this, the Climate and Atmospheric Institution Center, which is the Cyprus Institute. I think you have pretty much an all-in-all, let's say, encapsulation of centers of excellence that are built to advance science, but at the same time build, the excellence and service that can really go across and really act as beacons of, I think, service and towards the community, not just for Cyprus, but abroad. But I think building on this, what is also very surprising to see is that looking at our research organizations, be it, public universities like, University of Cyprus or the Open University or the PAC, I think we've got some exquisite researchers out there that are really pushing the boundaries in terms of, the type of research they're creating. And I mean, I think that also extends into the private sector where we're going. Now, the last piece is we do a lot on product innovation. So we've got a lot of innovative companies that are actually, also pushing the boundaries. They're not, publicly funded in terms of, like the centers of excellence. However, these are the ones that are, the customers towards the Research Innovation Foundation, which we work with. And, so they've got a lot of research, product innovation, new product development in any areas that start from deep tech, energy tech, retech, fintech, health tech. And I think, that's good, right? So for me, it's no surprise that Cyprus is really ramping up, moving up very fast. We see Cyprus being ranked for a second year into the European Innovation Scoreboard as number 10th on the list, right? And we're number 28th on the Global Innovation Index. So I think these are great. These are great areas. However, going back to your question about, the readiness, I think in terms of digital technologies, I think we still have a way or a road for us to really improve a bit more on the emerging technologies. So we've done a few things on blockchain, but we've got more room to innovate, to grow, right, and mature our skill set over there. I think we can do a lot more on cloud. Analytics is something that really pops up right on most of the areas that we see. I think I saw a CITEA index study that was actually facilitated and also one by IDC that showed that we're behind on analytics skills, and add to that data science and also cybersecurity. So I think there are a few areas which I would actually call the most pressing emerging areas where we can really build up, right? But if I can really conclude on, what do I see? I see a vibrant ecosystem. I see great effort from the ecosystem to really catch up, right, and scale, and we're investing. However, I see three main opportunities for us to really keep pushing and to push aggressively. Number one, I think it's really creating the boundaries or creating those conditions for the research organizations to come closer to what I call the industry and really, fuel. When we're together, we can fuel. And AI, right? I mean, just imagine how AI how using AI to simulate products, experiments, right, could actually encourage, I think, the research community or the scientific community, looking at health-related issues to really accelerate what they're doing. I mean, we all lived it when we had COVID and, the vaccines and the rate at which, for example, the pharmaceuticals, the pharmas moved from taking 10 years to look into a vaccine and develop it to doing it right in a record time. The second one is build excellence, not just in science, not just in research, but in technology. And I think I come across, a few smaller companies. We have ex-Googlers working in Cyprus, ex-Amazonians like myself, ex-Oracle guys, ex-Microsoft people who are here, who, really have that appetite for evangelization. I think we really need to capture that excellence and enable it in a way that is really going to help us. And the last but not least is, I think, I remember, I heard Steve Jobs actually say this at some point: product without utility is not anything, right? So
of course
he developed, for example, the iPhone. And when you look at that product platform and what it can do, right, it really opened the world. So I think that for us, an opportunity to look at, more strategically is how do we move slowly from just over focusing on, basic research and advanced or applied research to also think about commercialization. And I think by doing that, we will actually create an ecosystem that will actually have a handshake. Research organizations, centers of excellence, industry, let's say players. And this handshake will actually, I think, fuel and accelerate the growth in Cyprus.
I mean, we've done this. There are examples that we've done this, like NIPD genetics.
Exactly.
But we can do even better.
Well, we could use 100 more NIPD genetics, right? Or
of course,
or a few other Serenex and a few other companies, right? So I think that's a perfect example.
So what are your priorities right now in this role?
Okay. Well, I'll talk about the chief scientist. I'll talk about the chief scientist more than I will talk about the digital side of it or the technologies. But first of all, I'll start with a basic one, which is aligned to support basically the vision of the president, His Excellency Mr. Nikos Christodoulis, to really accelerate the digital transition of Cyprus, right? To basically make it possible for every citizen, right, to have that flexibility to really interact with digital unified front, right, be it a web browser or be it a citizen app, which was announced a few weeks ago, to actually reduce that overhead, to provide a better customer experience, and to really create that frictionless society. So I think the first priority I have is supporting my fellow friend, the Minister of Deputy of Digital Policy and Research Innovation, Nikodimos Damianou, in the journey of really catching up with this acceleration. And then my other main priorities are, number one, to actually create an environment where I map, right, the whole field of science, R&D, and innovation in Cyprus. It's every day I come across, top researchers that are, doing groundbreaking research on cancer, groundbreaking research on leukemia, groundbreaking research where, you can basically just, look at somebody's eyes and you can really say if 5 years, 10 years down the road, right, that person will actually be suffering from something called, for example, dementia, right? Now, of course, somebody's going to tell us that, that's already done because we can look at the dial. Yes. But what if we could actually combine this multidisciplinary research, right, and bring together dementia, attention deficit disorder, right, and then also combine it with others and really tackle some of the pressing needs that we as Cypriots, are vulnerable to in an area, right? So being able to map what we have as researchers out there, the top groundbreaking research we're doing, be it in, more practical areas like civil, military, defense, or, for example, science is something that's groundbreaking, but being able to really put all of this ecosystem in a place where one can really find the synergies is something that is a top priority for me. The second, the actual third, sorry, I keep on talking about the second, but I forgot that I already said the second. So the third one is actually creating the synergies, right, between all of these players, these stakeholders. And the reason I say this is because, usually people keep on debating about, the value of research versus the value of innovation and how it's there. But I think that, the easy way to look at it is some countries who have actually leapfrogged others have actually bet, on basic research, right? So we need fundamental research, we need applied research, but we also need to start looking a bit further and looking at, that innovation, how applied research transforms into a product and how that commercializes. And, one of the basic dimensions we have here is we have a very strong research organizations and institutions and very strong industries, but these two are not talking together. So part of my vision is to actually create the forum, create the boundaries where these groups of people are really interacting with each other, right? And they basically start brainstorming as a team. They become a real team. So, and that basically is a game changer. And I think the last one, which is long overdue, is sometimes, we, in the name of research or innovation, we over-complexify a process to basically ensure that we're really demonstrating the right behavior, simplifying that to make sure that the actual parties engaged, right, between each other, focus on the right thing. The right thing is research, the right behavior is innovation, and we shouldn't be over-complexifying something just for us to be able to justify it. So as chairman of the Research Innovation Foundation, we've actually taken towards the ecosystem a proposal talking about a simplified process that can actually tackle this. And that's part of the plan. So that's my main priority right now. In my first 2 years, I want to really focus on these fundamental, let's say, areas. So it's all about, mapping and developing the community, ensuring that, we help them in commercialization and shift the focus so we can really go from, theoretical to theoretical plus, I would say, practical application that can feed the funnel, right? Meaning bring in money with the successful IP tax, and then at the same time, make it easier for people to come. If we do these three things, right, we'll be more attractive. We'll be positioning ourselves further on the innovation score. We'll be more attractive for, startups and other tech companies to come, and eventually also support His Excellency's vision in, making Cyprus a regional hub, an innovation hub, and an R&D hub.
Thank you. You touched upon this before. Unfortunately, unlike the US, in Europe, a lot of time we think our research something that happens in the universities and is disconnected from the businesses. So how can businesses actively contribute to fostering research and development, and what strategies can be implemented to increase the number of innovative firms here in Cyprus?
Well, I think if we go back and we look at, right, all successful companies, right, started off as a small startup in a garage, they ended becoming bigger, and, they start becoming even more successful because they actually have built an R&D unit that looks, into their product, their portfolio, 5-10 years ahead. In fact, there's some of them that basically have actually gone out of the market simply because they have not invested in R&D. I think that there is a misconception that our businesses are not talking with the research organizations, because I've seen a lot of cooperation happening. But what I think can actually be a game changer for us is if we start making that a priority for the business, right? I think not every business, because there's many SMEs that are not big enough, do not have the necessary, let's say, frame, or I would say infrastructure for them to build an R&D department. But I think building an R&D department, either it's a 1-person team, it's a 3-person team, it's a 10-person team, or even a 100-person team, where we have some of our pharmaceuticals having, is something that will really help. So I think that's one of the priorities we need to start looking at as a nation, as to how we as established companies can actually start leveraging from R&D as a mechanism that can protect our viability into the future, making us more competitive and more sustainable. Now, in doing so, I think there's a bridge, right? So there's a research organization on this side, and there's what I would call for example, the industry on the other side. And sometimes these two worlds feel fundamentally very disconnected, because a researcher is more, going to be looking at everything from a scientific perspective. In technology, for example, we can talk about an example like, let's take artificial intelligence, right? Who cares about, neural networks, or let's say deep learning, or let's say supervised versus unsupervised, let's say algorithms, right? Or machine learning. What people care about in the business world is, can I actually use AI to actually reduce my fraudulent claims, right? So in this case, right, there's two ways in doing it. One way is you have a company, we have a specific company, we call them insurance. An insurance company says, hey guys, right, I want to use technology to actually help me, save time, lower operational costs, create a better customer experience. I've heard that technology can do wonders for me, right? Dear University, let's say of Cyprus, Kios, or for example, Science or whoever, can you actually help me understand which part of this can actually happen? And that could actually start a project, we call it research and enterprise, right? Where basically this research can actually go into the enterprise and they can start looking at specific needs related only to the actual enterprise. At the same time, right, if there is an organization that wants to co-develop specific, let's say, solutions or specific IP, that could actually be going under a program that we call co-develop. Now, the thing here is that the very important thing here is that actually the government of Cyprus has actually taken a very bold step. There's actually a cooperation between all of these centers of excellence and a few other parties like PricewaterhouseCoopers. There's the Digital Innovation Hub, and the Digital Innovation Hub is actually a facilitation unit that can actually help an SME or the regular SME to actually start pursuing its digital transformation journey by providing those lower order advisory services. So I think we need to come to a point where businesses start thinking about R&D as a way to make them more sustainable, to help them really look at what's next, right, in their cycle. As a point of doing that, we've got several tools. We've got PhD in industry. We've got research in enterprise. We've got the co-develop program that can actually help us move across this bridge, either enterprise coming to research or research organization working with enterprise. And in the middle, this builds, tremendous capacity and potential that stays with the enterprise. And once this part here is successful at a first stage, there's other units like the Dig Hub, right, that basically can actually help, for example, the organization start looking at how can R&D, become a mainstream part and scale up, right? So hope I answered your question.
Yes, of course. So I think in the very beginning you said something about the 90%, 9 out of 10 startups going out of business. In general, startup life is, difficult. So my question is for you, first of all, do you have any advice for startups? And the second part is, what kind of help or support can the foundation provide in their journeys?
Yeah, startups. I think first of all, startups are a big chapter, right? And you keep on reading, great books like Eric's book, right? The on the startup models, etc., and others, by I think universities that have their own cookbooks, or I would say their methodologies, be it the MIT or the Stanford Canvas by our dear friend from Cyprus. So Professor Zenios. Now, what I think is important as an advice to the startups of the world is, if you have an idea and you really have looked out there and you've seen that your idea isn't there today, right? Focus relentlessly and pursue that dream, right? There's many times where we've seen a simple idea, how collaboration turned Facebook into a success, right? Or Airbnb into another phenomenal success. Or even, for example, Amazon to where Amazon is today. So I think that ability of really looking out, testing your idea, thinking about your idea, thinking about how your idea could create value is something that gives you that belief that you could really pursue that. Now, the second piece of advice that I'm actually going to say is that, sometimes it's ideas, everybody can have an idea, right? But the most important thing is to start looking into the idea and see how could this idea of really focusing on customer needs that are unmet today, create and capture value. Meaning, okay, how can we create and capture value? And I think the fintech world is a great example where we are all used to using banks, right, and the traditional banking model. And all of a sudden, you see fintechs that are using what we call, the Payment Service Director 2, PSD2, right, because of the decoupling. And they're creating just nice user experiences that can really excite the user and really helping them to really work, for example, with a Revolut rather than work with a normal bank. So I think when you look at that idea, just make sure that idea, right, is actually able to capture, you think about the capturing of the value and the creating of the value. To get there, right, you always need to think about specific customer personas, right? I mean, there is no solution that can be generic enough to tackle every user. You just have to really dissect, look at the customer personas, reflect, see what the unmet needs are, start working, for example, on what the value creation is and how you capture it, and then test that hypothesis, move over. I think the other item that I've seen that we could improve here in Cyprus is we keep on talking about startups and we're looking for funding and funding and funding. Sometimes we overlook the problem of really thinking about how could I build an MVP or a wireframe where I can test my assumptions, I can go out there, I can get some feedback, test my hypothesis, go back, reflect, right, before I go out and I spend, millions of dollars on building something that somebody doesn't have.
Basic
right?
proof of concept.
Basic proof of concept, right? And I think this piece is actually very important. And thank you for terming it as proof of concept. But sometimes I see people who are really in the startup world. They're so concerned and concentrated on how they're going to fund the funding to fund each phase. By the time they actually get to the proof of concept being alive to be out there, right? The world has changed, and this is what I'm really what I'd really advise all of the friends out there in the startup community is we live in a very volatile, uncertain world, right? Make sure that you act in speed. I mean, Amazon, Steve, right? Jeff was all about breaking things, making sure that you really get the customer experience, but you break, you build, you rebuild, and you really move that forward, right? And I think this is actually something that leads me to the fifth point is as a startup, right? Try to think about your commercialization. Try to think about your pricing strategy. Try to think how you're monetizing the solution you have, right? Gone are the days where we had the luxury of really offering everybody a freemium version of the product, right? And you just get 1,000 users on and they're just going to magically, pay you X dollars when your price goes up. So think about the pricing strategy. It's one of the most important things that, people often overlook when they're actually developing that. Building on, I think, going back to the days of when I joined Amazon, right? And I remember the working backwards for the customers. Amazon's motto, right? We focus on customer obsession. And that's great, right? Because you start looking into the future at what the customer wants and you start working backwards and to really see where you're going to start with. So if you have that in place, right, you start thinking in a different way is don't build a team today that is going to be one founder, two people coding, right? And then you expect everything to magically happen when you grow. So start thinking about your team, start thinking about what you would like the team to look at, when you're going to be serving your first 1,000 customers or your 10,000 customers, etc., and build that, so that you move forward.
So what kind of, how can the foundation support startups?
Well, I mean, at the foundation, we've got 4 programs that are actually focused on the, on supporting, I would call entrepreneurs, not just startups, right? Because we can have an entrepreneur can be someone who is a researcher who's just, found a very interesting, discovery, and he thinks that he or she could actually monetize it by building a solution, or it could be somebody who has an innovative idea. To support and enable, our ecosystem, we have 4 programs. One is called Pre-Seed, starts with an idea, goes through a competitive funding program, right? And through this program, if you are approved and part of it, right, you get approximately 119,000 euros to be very precise, that are equity free for you to actually start from going from, that idea into materializing it, building it into a POC and being able to really test it into the market. Building on that, right, once you have established that, there's a successor program which we call Seed. Seed takes you all the way up to €500,000, and that program is all about making sure that you've got the ingredients required for you to go beyond your initial startup phase. Innovate is all about, when the Innovate program goes up to €1,000,000, and it's a program that basically provides you with the tools and also, the monetary capability and instruments for you to really start building your go-to-market, right? You're thinking about how are you going to externalize, having the capacity for you to really, build an end-to-end engine, right? And of course, we've got some of the islands, I think, most innovative companies that are building robotics robotics, right, into teaching kids as to how to really, start getting ready for a STEM world, to pursue science, that have actually been winners in such programs. And last but not least, right, we recognize that the journey of a startup, right, doesn't end, somewhere, right? So there's companies who go beyond. They actually start establishing themselves. They've got some products. They're building new products around, right, their core offering. But then they're at a stage where they want to go into a scale-up world, right? And that requires a very different type of support. And to augment that, what we basically have is we basically have a program, we call it Disrupt. Right, and Disrupt is all about bringing the two worlds together, meaning helping, for example, the company to really start taking the baby steps into the scale-up world, and that requires venture capitalist, right, investment. So an entrepreneur who's actually at the stage where he has a company's valued, they're actually performing, so they're really stable, they're solid, right? They actually use a VC that's regulated in Europe. They invest $1 million, and then basically they're eligible for seeking more support from the ecosystem and moving forward. But not to stop here, right? These 4 programs are just the beginning. There's a lot of hard work that is happening behind the scenes by others, like incubators and accelerators in the island that are really investing, helping, providing coaching, business model innovation services, right, and really helping all of these innovative companies move forward. And I mean, just to give 2 examples and 2 extremes, I won't name any of these incubators or accelerators for obvious reasons, right? But on one side, we've got one that has actually created a robotic platform that enables, I think, the disabled people to be able to move up, staircases. Very inspiring story. I mean, you could actually walk into the incubator's office and you can see the actual platform, right? And you can even test it yourself. And on the other side, right, we've got again an example of of a company, right, that basically provides services trying to help our scientists accelerate the extension of their mind beyond research, to look at the commercial side of things. And there's a marvelous example where we've got Mentis VR, a company that was actually created as an example, starting from a pre-seed, with a very well-known football goalkeeper here in Cyprus, who actually created a solution that uses virtual reality and augmented reality to train goalkeepers and develop their how do we call it, their actual skill set, and making them more agile. And bringing me back to the cool things that can actually happen is, I recall reading a book a few years when I was actually younger. It was, the relentless mindset, or the performance zone, or even the inner game of tennis, right? When I was actually thinking, how does Rafa or Roger Federer or, Kobe Bryant or, Michael Jordan perform in the zone? And I came across the book, The Inner Game of Tennis, right, which just explained to me. So when I was actually being introduced to the Mentis VR platform, and I put it up, right, I had, people shooting, right, the ball towards me, and I couldn't even move my hand. I said, man, this is actually inspiring to see how VR and AR can really help a football, goalkeeper develop and simulate their reflexes, so that they can become more mentally aware and prepared for what's going to be there happening in the field. And, I think going back to the initial one, innovation has no limits. Imagine that this solution that the researcher has actually moved on from groundbreaking research into an actual application can actually be moved on into the game of tennis, into volleyball, into basketball, and other let's say type of activities. So I think we're there. We have a lot of supporting services from accelerators, incubators, my own organization with the Innovation Factory, and we're there to help our entire ecosystem.
You already mentioned a lot of the programs that of the foundation, but would you like to maybe mention a few of the programs that are currently open?
Well, yes. I mean, we've got PhD in industry, right? We have, PhD in industry is a very interesting program, and a very, I think, successful one. It's a program that we basically help researchers, right, go to the industry and actually work within the organization. And this way it gives an opportunity to young ladies and young men who, are very keen on, taking that research into the market. I think we've got, a situation where if we looked at the past, we just had, we awarded 7 contracts basically amounting to €1 million, and we had approximately, this went to 15 enterprises, creating approximately 23 full-time jobs. This was so successful that we opened a new one worth 1.75 million euros, right? So that's going to be a good one. And I think that's something that everybody should look at. We've got Disrupt, which we have a specific Disrupt call going on until I think it's the 22nd of March, right? Disrupt is something that is there for the companies that basically need that extra push for them into their scale-up world. And then, we've got a few others, right? We've got, I think, the Research and Enterprise. The Co-Develop just finished. And I think there is one more that is basically the Bridge to Horizon, where we're going to be having, I think, another call open up very, very soon. But I'm not going to just stop there, right? I'm going to actually say that it's research and development shouldn't just stop with the competitive funding projects we have. So just in energy alone, right? We've got approximately 10 million euros across enterprise, basically, and also the Co-Develop. And these are basically to enhance basically our research capabilities and our development in areas that are very aligned towards the country's national objectives, right? But I think what's also important is that going beyond Co-Develop, which will target, climate change and low carbon and the resilience and security, right, of energy systems and energy storage technologies, there's actually calls that are going on at a European level all the time, right? There's one that's open right now until the end of November on security. There's others, right, that are open with the Defense Fund. There's the CHIP Act, right, and all of these calls are out there. So I think for researchers and for I think scientists and innovators, it's not a matter of a shortage of funds. It's a matter of really having the passion, the persistence, the genuine intention to really push the barrier. And when I talk about push the barriers, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not just talking about R&D. I'm talking about put your time into something that is really going to break the world. Put your time into something that is going to transform Cyprus into I think the next startup nation, right, in the world. I mean, we're small, but we can really do wonders. And I'm very happy that we've got 450. I'll just say a few things. I think that robosynthetics is actually going to be a game changer for us. I think health tech is going to be another upcoming area for us. Energy tech is there, right? I think pharma tech is another. In addition, I think to, deep tech, defense, and all of these areas where we're already making strides.
Thank you very much. I'm going to switch a bit the subject. So the very hot topic the past year is artificial intelligence, but I think a lot of people are struggling to understand what really AI is and how can we utilize this effectively. Would you like to, give your insight into this?
Well, I mean, I think the AI, I think, has been the hot topic in the last, I think, year or so, right? And it's something that you find many people that are, worried about it, afraid of it, right? And others who are basically thinking about how it's really going to be transforming. I think that, looking at it from a very, very simplistic perspective, right? AI is all about math and statistics, right? And using algorithms in terms of machine learning to really be able to really help a machine act as a human, right? Not in terms of emotions, but in terms of decision making. So I think if I just, would like to simplify it down for the simple layman, imagine that we have, what we call supervised learning. We show a machine a million pictures, right? And we label them on the other side, and it starts to understand that this is a cat, this is a dog, this is a car, or this is even the line that, the car is moving out, or right when it's changing the lane. That's supervised learning, right? When we don't have the labeling, right, and we have the data and we don't tell the robot or the machine how it is really going to move to one side, that's called unsupervised learning. And then we have what I would call, the deep learning or the neural algorithm. So AI is here. AI is really helping us really move ahead in strides. Most people, when they think about AI, they think about, oh man, it's all about ChatGPT or Google Bard, right, or whatever it is. But it isn't the case. I think it's more about, classifying, saying, well, we've got something called generative AI. Then we've got AI where we're talking about computer vision. Then we talk, for example, about robotic process automation, which is a simplified view of it. But the most important thing that I would say is that, when we're looking about it, we're talking about getting to see what use cases of AI are going to be more relevant to us. And I think the great work being done with the EU AI Act is actually, I think, a first. I think, segmenting the use cases depending on, where and what will be used is something that is going to really change and help us. I think, many people are talking about the actual limitation to innovating versus not innovating with stringent control. I think we'll be fine there. But I think that the AI is an inspiring tool. It's a tool that really can help people become much more productive. I've embraced it as chairman of the Research Innovation Foundation, and in November, we had an offsite where we had team building activities, and we basically had 2 hours of AI. I think our good friend Andronikos Devridis were there for the general part of the AI. How do you actually create a document, a summary, prompt engineering, a PPT, and then we had my dearest friend, the vice chairman of Neapolis, Professor Hadjikristos Savas, who actually took the organization in a deeper level. Now, think about this: 7 teams, right? 4 people each. It took them 1 month, and we had, in less than a month, we had 20 proposals of how we could use AI to help us become more productive, save time, offer better customer service. We've had 50% of my organization, actually, which is an organization, right, a private organization funded by the government, actually experimenting with generative AI. And we actually have, now more than 50 digital badges of it, right? The amount of productivity that I see in my organization is like mind-blowing. I can only say that for me, it was a very interesting thing that I piloted an example where we had, for example, I asked them to create, for example, a small deck that highlighted what AI use cases are being used in public sector across Italy, Greece, France, Germany, Spain, the United Kingdom, Lithuania, Estonia, Dubai, and Singapore. And they actually did this in 24 hours. Now, going back to your initial question, how is AI going to help us? Well, AI is going to help us become more productive. AI is going to help us really save time, right? And really, move manual tasks or things that, can be done with lower order effort, allowing people to actually create more time for the things that they have. And at the same time, offer, for example, through conversational intelligent agents, call centers that can really understand a different language, right? Offer us, I think, tremendous benefits in customer experience, be it in insurance, be it in financial services, be it in use cases for the government that we're looking at, right? Be it, for example, for education and all others. In terms of learning, I think the skills that we're probably going to have to look at, right, and really build on are, how do we actually learn how to use more information management, get a bit more, let's say, capable on using, I think, the traditional tools out there, how to actually do more critical thinking and be able to really detect, what is right, what is wrong, what works, what doesn't. Is this data accurate? Is it not, right? Is the data set I'm feeding into a model correct or not? More about problem solving, thinking about, how do we develop more skill sets on collaboration, communication, right? And to be able to really use AI, right, as a tool. I think one of the core advices I'm going to give to all my fellow colleagues and friends out there is AI can actually help us. So making sure that we know how to use AI, right, or augmenting a human with an AI powered bot in his pocket can actually help them, right, be more productive. However, never stop thinking that we have the critical thinking. We know what ethics, we know what values are, right? So we need to make sure that we are competent enough and ready enough to really be the role that we need to play into the future, meaning the human in the loop, right? Or human augmented AI capabilities. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. The thing is, though, that there is a lot of concern. There is concern about people losing their jobs. There are privacy concerns, concerns about copyrights. And then, of course, there is if you grew up in the 80s or the 90s and you've seen the Terminator and the Matrix, the machines are coming to get us, right? So should we be worried?
I think, no, I would say we shouldn't be worried because, first of all, as I said, the EU AI Act is a step in the right direction. I think we're doing at a government level, right? We're at the phase where we're revising the AI strategy. The first one was 2020 to 2025. We're at the phase where we're looking right now at the evolution of that. I think there's very clear guidance as to, that we want to have AI be explainable. We want to, understand how the decisions are actually taken, how, the path to that decision was made, right? So give that there. Training the models on something is something that, we are in control of. I think that the necessary precautions are there. Of course, we also need to make sure that we're not going to be using AI for unethical, let's say, use cases. So it also depends on us, on our curiosity as human beings. And I think, we've seen many things spiral out of control where we as humans have not taken, ethical decisions or having, for example, the ethics of humanity at mind. Now, I think for the working force, again, there's something that is very important that I'd like to actually say. The government is actually taking a very, very proactive stand in really helping citizens develop, I think their digital capacity and skill sets. So I think with the Deputy Minister of Research, Innovation and Digital Policy, we've got a great collaboration and we're moving forward. There's a national plan developing digital skills. We've got the redesigning of the educational system to really look at how digital tools can actually be incorporated in to really help, I think teachers and educators be empowered to be able to help children to have that skill set, right? Digital academy for citizens where, citizens can actually go onto the portal and they can actually find, what training is available. And I'll just give you an example. You take yourself. Did you know that Anad actually provides you with the capability to go out and get the basic Azure Foundations AI training?
I did, yes.
You did, right?
But I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm saying is we probably need to do a bit more on really pushing all of these out, right, and making sure the ecosystem has. But I think with the techies we have, with a government that's very pro-digital, with a digital ministry that's pushing on full forces, right, and the actual national digital plan out there with the Digital Academy, and I think the Digital Academy for Citizens, my role, which is I think a very crucial role, being very involved with the AI strategy and also with the ecosystem as as a sponsor. I think we have the necessary ingredients to make sure that we get people with the necessary awareness, but at the same time with the tools that they need for them to skill up. Now, let me say that, learning AI or learning edge technologies isn't a luxury that we have. It's something that we're going to have to do, just like we learn how to use a mobile, just like we had to learn how to, we're going to learn how to drive electric cars. Just how we're going to, learn how to live with new technologies. And I'll just stop here with a question for you. I think this is a good one. Is we're probably, we grew up in the same age, right, and the same era. And there's a museum of computers, right, just across this road, like a few kilometers away. If you go, for example, there and you talk to Alexis Kofteros or Alexandros Kofteros,
yes,
and also, for example, my dear friend, Professor Chen, right, Berkeley's Chen, you're going to see so many devices that were the Ataris and the Sinclairs and the Commodores.
It's an amazing museum,
right?
Actually.
And I mean, for us, when I went there, I thought that I was, born yesterday and I never experienced all of those machines, right? So the pace of technology is just increasing, right? AI is a game changer today, but there's going to be new game changers tomorrow. And I think just like we do, when we do our best, we keep on learning, adapting, adjusting, right, and evolving. I think that's a skill set that we're going to have to continue to build upon. But I think what's important, right, is the fact that for us, I think the government, in coordination with all of the ministries and all of the other external hands, is really putting a major effort to empower the citizens and really help them by providing all of the services. A call out for all of you is really I mean, there's a lot of information. Visit the site of the Deputy Ministry of Digital Innovation. Go to the Academy, the Digital Academy for Citizens. Look up at Anath. There's amazing courses out there that can help you get started, not just on cloud and AI, right? Pretty much everything.
So I'm glad you talk about citizen, because that was my next question is, I mean, we talk about AI, we talk about some of the skills, but in general, what are the skills that the citizens or the individuals need in this new era?
Well, I think first of all, the ability to distinguish between basic needs of security. Is this a phishing attack, right? Or is this something that is a scam, right? So I mean, we all get, every day we keep on getting these emails that are telling us that the parcel can be delivered. Click here, right, to actually make a payment, right? I mean, you don't have to click. You can just reply and see if that goes to something called DHL at or something else.
They are getting very good, actually.
They are. I mean, it's pretty scary to see how fast the security world is actually moving, and how all of these new techniques are being going out on an everyday basis. But the ability to actually and the necessary awareness to be able to understand the basics on scamming or the basics of security, I think is something that everybody should actually work on. The ability to be able to manage the basics, like be able to attach, for example, a Word document or attach a sheet and really move it across a device using WhatsApp, or communication mechanisms. The ability to use, for example, the simple things we have, like a simple camera on your digital phone to take, for example, a video and report an incident, or take a picture and really use it instead of a scanner. I mean, most phones out there right now, they've got more than 12 or 16 megapixels. Some of them even have 50 plus, right? So the ability of them being able to take a high definition picture that can actually even be loaded into a computer is amazing, right? I mean, basic tools, basic skills, like how do you operate, I think the basic stuff like Word, Excel, etc. But I'm going to go even a step further. I think for a citizen, the ability to actually be able to navigate across a simple user interface, be it using a chatbot, right, or being able to ask simple questions that are clear so that, a chatbot can actually serve, or even using AI like a ChatGPT are going to be, I think, my top skills that I would actually say. And I think we're going to get there much faster because the kids of today and the children are very technology savvy.
Yeah, my daughter scares me.
What is she using?
Everything. I mean, she's on the iPad, and then she's showing me stuff that I don't know how to use.
I can imagine, right? Using AI as a video editor, using all of these technologies. So I think the world has changed, right? And I think I'm very excited because what I'm seeing in Cyprus, and I think our commitment here is to really create and provide, at the policy level, the let's say the enablers for the ecosystem to grow. There's a tremendous focus on innovation, R&D, and at the same time technology. Our conversations, I think, with my peers are all about how do we use technology to really help us create those superior experiences. And I think, people keep on asking me, right? I think it's the next question you probably will ask me. Maybe it's not going to be a surprise, right? Why Cyprus, right?
Yeah, of course. Why Cyprus?
Well, I think, Cyprus isn't just one of the most beautiful islands when it comes to the beaches. For those of you who haven't heard of us, right, we've got more than 60 blue water flag beaches. What makes us different is that we're at the crossroads, right, between Europe, Middle East, right, and Asia, Central Asia. Now, why is this very important? This is very important because if you choose to actually set up your business in Cyprus as a startup, what makes the difference is that you have access to the single EU market. You become, if you fulfill the criteria an innovation company, by default, you can actually build products that are made in Cyprus, circulated or having access to the European market, which is a very big plus. By becoming an innovation company, right, certified as an innovation company, you become eligible for you to actually, compete or be part of the ecosystem for the EU funds and the national funds, all of these great products that I talked about a few minutes ago, right, the pre-seeds, the seeds, the innovates, the disrupts, the PhD in industry, the actual co-innovation, the co-develop, etc. And, what's even more important is that Cyprus, besides the corporate tax, has a very attractive IP box tax, right? So if you're a tech company in software, for example, and you build a solution that's a subscription as a service solution, right? That's 2.5% tax when you work globally. Now, if that's not more attractive to you, we're putting in a lot of effort in really externalizing and supporting, the investments that, our startups are doing. I mean, I'm at Reflect in Saudi a few weeks down the road. I was in Slush in Helsinki, Jitex in Dubai. Then we have the Mobile World Congress. Then we have, exhibitions all around the world. And this is a platform where, in coordination with other associations like the Cyprus Chamber of Commerce or, and others, be it, for example, Take Island, or be it, for example, Cyprus Seeds, we're really connecting the dots and helping our community. And our community is everybody who starts building R&D, innovation, technology in Cyprus, right? Add to this, right, I think there's another fundamental one that is very, very important that people often overlook. Being a member of the EU family gives you access to talent that's not just local in Cyprus. I think we've got a lot of talent in the island. 12 universities, right?
Yes.
2,500 researchers. You can probably walk outside and find, a researcher in a domain that you want. And I think we have more than 150 that are being graduating, for example, at a master's or a PhD level on artificial intelligence alone. So we have local talent, which is very important, but we also have access to talent that you can actually bring in without visa restrictions, right, and residency restrictions. But due to the great work that, the Deputy Ministry is doing, I think we have a great program where we have, for example, the digital nomad visas, the startup visas, the researcher visas, right? And when people actually tell me, so what? I said, teams, just think for a moment. You actually have the possibility to mix and match between the best talent that you could have, the top researchers, people who actually are innovators or consultants across EU. You can combine them with, I think, some of the top scientists coming from other countries. Another country could be, for example, India. It could be Korea. It could be Egypt. It could be Jordan. It could be Dubai. It could be Saudi. It could be, for example, any other country out there, right? While at the same time, you have a center place, a lower cost of living, an attractive environment for business, a country that has secondary language is English, right? We're just maybe, I think, 1 hour and 35 minutes away from Athens. We're just less than 30 minutes away from Tel Aviv, and from Lebanon. We're just maybe an hour away from Egypt. We're 3 hours and 50 minutes away from Dubai. We're just about 3.5 hours away from Paris, 5 hours away from London, right? So if you want to be in a sunny environment, have access to human capital, have a great quality of life in terms of affordability and really being able to build a business, a very friendly ecosystem that supports R&D as part of its main sources of build-up, right? And as a business, a vibrant community, an attractive area where you can bring in, I think, your resources, and at the same time, right, be able to operate across the EU and have unrivaled, I think, customer experience. I think Cyprus should be on your list, and I think for us, I'm pleased to say this. I see, some of the biggest gaming companies here, some companies that are, in the areas of designing chips, some that are into space and exploration, right? And a few things that I can't talk publicly about.
And right? A lot of fintech.
And a lot of fintech, right? A lot of fintech. I think we're also seeing energy tech is going to be a big one for us. I mean, I talked about 10 million euros of programs, right, that are aligned onto the energy and all of that area. So I think Cyprus is, I think, very attractive.
Come here.
Come here, yeah, thank you.
So we talk a lot about Cyprus. So how do you envision the future of Cyprus in terms of its position in the global landscape of, science and technology?
Well, I think that's a very hard question. I think every chief scientist or every CTO, right, would actually be in a very challenging position to answer that. But I can tell you for sure is I think that the next years, I think at least in the presidency that we're in under His Excellency, are going to be pivotal. We're actually investing a lot into really advancing the digitalization and modernization of the experience of our citizens. So I think that, in the next years, we will be seeing a very different interaction with government, a very different interaction where citizens are going to really start, picking up very, very fast, I think on all digital technologies. From a scientific perspective, I think we're continuing our focus and our commitment to investing diligently into research, innovation, right, and R&D. We have centers of excellence. We've got, we're looking at it. We're going to be looking at how do we actually measure their performance and help them grow. And I think some of the services that we're seeing in these schools are just, I think amazing. I visited the Cyprus Marine and Maritime Institute, and I was given a tour, and I was seeing as to how do they actually work on, neutralizing the effect of, the carbon emissions of fuel, right, when the actual let's say ships or cargo ships are coming in, and how we decarbonize. How do we look at, moving, for example, and treating waste, right, and really using that waste to create alternative sources of fuel. I think that, our researchers are really pushing, I think science and R&D to its boundaries. So I'm sitting here and saying that, if you are a tremendous researcher, if you believe that you have that skill and that capability, we've got the research teams, we've got the centers of excellence, we've got, I think great minds that are in the leadership position in the teams today, which are working together as a team to change it. I can only see us rising up. I think the DESI score is something that we're going to be seeing soon, and I think that with the efforts that we're making, we're going to be, looking into some interesting facts. But I can say that, in 4 years' time, we are going to be a surprise for many of our counterparts in the neighborhood.
You're not even looking far into the future.
No, I think we have capability to actually accelerate. We have the human capital. We have the will. We are aligning in teams, and I'm happy to say that through my 5 months that I've been here, I've got the Cyprus Computer Society working with me. I've got CIDEA. I've got Take Island. I've got Kari, fantastic colleagues. At the deputy minister. I think the deputy minister to their president is really, really I think a supporter of technology, as is I think our president, His Excellency President Christodoulidis. So I think we've got the will, we've got we've got the tools, we have the the researchers in place and the techies. What we need to do is make sure we have all of the building blocks and we're aligned in building them, right? And it's just like the Jenga puzzle.
Just to close this interview, what advice will you give to aspiring scientists and innovators here in Cyprus that are looking to make an impact?
I would actually say 3 things, right? And I would say that making an impact is just not thinking of Cyprus alone, right? So I know many researchers that are here in Cyprus that are really changing the world on a global basis, right? So be bold. Don't allow the size of the country to really deter you if you're thinking big. Right, so I think this is a great example. I think Professor Philippos Patsalis with an IPAD demonstrated this very well, and there's a few others, right, that we know. Some of them are ladies, them even well, right? Malak, for example, yes, right? A very interesting story of a researcher who was, I think young, believed in that vision of really looking at how, malware and cybersecurity could actually be enhanced, right, by creating their own version of an application and using artificial intelligence. I think there's others which I can't talk about right now because we have patents that are in progress, right? And we don't want to spoil out too much. But I think the number one advice is if you're a researcher, think big, right? That's one of the actual values we have at Amazon. One of our principles: think big, right? Think big. I think the next one is always take a proactive, collaborative path to working. I think bringing in grants is not an easy thing. So I think collaboration, building synergies is actually, I think, something that is imminent. So I think take your time to network, take your time to listen. I think sometimes we often fall short in listening as to what are other people doing across, right? I mean, I'll give you an example. I came across a very interesting R&D company that is actually working into, I think, health tech and also, biotech. And they're actually building, different versions of databases and data warehouses and big data engines. And I think, those are problems we've actually solved with technology a while ago, right? I mean, pretty much right now we've got open source versions of, I think Postgres and others. We've got, the cloud. We've got these technologies there as an infra. I would encourage you, right, to start thinking about the specific domain knowledge that you need, right? Instead of rebuilding, for example, something from scratch, and making sure that you work with those organizations that can really help you accelerate. Focus on where you can create the value, not recreate the value somebody else has created. Make sure that you use that time that you have, right, to really change and make the difference, right? And now, from a researcher's perspective, I talked about, thinking big. I talked about, leverage, collaborate, listening carefully, right? And leveraging the synergies where you have. I'm going to talk about, the third thing is think about the difficult problems that need to be solved. Think about the ones that can be solved. Think about the ones that you want to solve. Think about the ones that could be, national priorities for us here, because we're small in size. We're only about 900,000 people, right? But we can use all of the brain power that we have. And I think if we have our researchers thinking on topics that are, more relevant to us, I think that can provide, I think an extra area. Now, again, I know today we've talked more about tech and deep tech and technology, right? But there's a whole vibrant, I think research ecosystem in Cyprus on life sciences, right? And I don't want you to forget all of that. I think there's tremendous professors that are out there. I mean, when you actually look at, professors that have also brought ERC grants into Cyprus, you see that we're really promoting academic excellence. So if you want to continue, if you finished abroad and you want to come back and you feel very passionate, you can come back and make a difference. We want you. Now, on the technology side, I think here's where I need your help, guys. We're moving very fast into the next age, right? The inflection points on edge technologies, be it Internet of Things, be it artificial intelligence, be it cloud, be it data warehouses, be it data lakes, be it analytics, be it data science, and also cybersecurity is something where we need a lot of more help. I think all of these areas are very promising, particularly AI, cybersecurity, analytics, data science. The others, I think we've actually done a lot more. But I think as a nation, we've got a fantastic program in terms of skilling. We've got a fantastic program in terms of digital transformation, and we're pushing. I'm not saying we're perfect. We're learning every day, and we're really looking at our whole design and how to prioritize things. But I think that all of this experience, plus the fact that we've got 450 tech startups in the island, a lot more coming in on a fast pace, right, and a vibrant community, right, just shows that there's a lot more work to be done. There's a lot of opportunity, and let me just leave you with a thought. Right? The actual contribution of information technology compared to financial services or professional services is right now at almost an equal par. This is the first time in our history in Cyprus, right, where IT has actually been such a big contributor, and we're now at that inflection point. And I think with the advent of cloud, the emerging technology, the priorities of the government on digital transformation, and I think the Citizen app and all of these, technology is a sure bet to go. So if you're skilled, invest more. Look out there. I think there's some great companies out in the ecosystem that are looking to hire for more people. We've got a tremendous program for the digital upskill, reskill, investing into skilling people on analytics. And the last message I'm going to give you is, if you're a mathematician, if you're a civil engineer, if you're an electrical engineer, if you're a statistician, right, or even if you're a chemical engineer, and I think a lot more other types of specializations out there, if you really are passionate, right, artificial intelligence could be a room for you to actually upskill. It can be an easy upskill. There's two versions of the world. There's one when you're actually going to have to be doing the hard stuff, the coding, right? And then there's an easier one where you can actually use no code or low code platforms, right, for AI and ML, and you can really move forward. So I think when I'm looking at the next version, for example, of the insight that our economies will be looking at, trying to find that predictive insight, or I think prescriptive insight, data science is the next evolution, and I think we could use. All of these talents can actually reskill or even specialize in on the side, right? And that will make sure that you have a much more vibrant, a much more attractive career ahead of you. And I'll stop with a simple one. I'm not going to tell you who said this, but I'm going to ask you to ask ChatGPT to figure it out for you, or Google Bard, right? We actually are looking at an economy where people who have more skills in AI will be looking at a 40% potential increase in pay, right, compared to what we see today with traditional economies. And this is not just Cyprus, right? This survey was not done for Cyprus. This is a global scale, right? So remember, with the evolution of technology, right, working remotely, offering services, right, and especially being able to really bring in customers much faster is something that actually will be a game changer. And leaving you with two parting thoughts, right? Somebody told me once that data is the new oil. Well, I've got one for you, right? And this is the chief scientist of Cyprus sharing this with you. AI is a new form of energy. You combine the two and you can really help any business model become true.
Thank you very much, Dimitri.
You're welcome, Elena. Thank you for having me.